And 1 year ago, Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania walked out of Walter Reed National Medical Center after seeking treatment for depression and also following a stroke in 2022. A lot going on with him. But since then, he's been on his own 2 feet, an outspoken critic and a commentator on a number of issues, not always what some of his supporters would want him to say and what they want to hear. Senator John Fetterman joins us now. Senator, thank you very much for being here.
Yeah, it's so great to be here, yeah.
We should point out you have the iPad in front of you and a stenographer working over there in the corner. The lingering effects of the stroke mean that sometimes audio processing is difficult.
It is, and it's really just about captioning. It's really the perfect example is like you're wearing glasses, and it allows somebody to read, be more efficiently, and this is what this is well, too. Thankfully, after the stroke, it didn't have any impact on my intellect, but processing language, this allows me to be more precise when we're doing interviews and things in situations just like this.
That makes sense.
So it's good to know your intellect is fine.
Well, let's talk about 1 year on here. I mean, that's why you came on today. You walk out of Walter Reed. At the time, you went in thinking of harming yourself, thinking there was worthlessness in your life. You didn't know how you could help your family, let alone the people of Pennsylvania. 1 year later, where are you? How are things going?
I am grateful, and I'm just so happy to be in a much different situation right now. I have the opportunity to sit with all of you today to talk about mental health and how incredibly important that is to do that. And I didn't think I was going to be in that same place when I was coming out there. When I decided to check myself in, I thought this could be the end of my career. And I maybe even lost my family. But to having all of that and to be able to have that conversation, whether or not it's a political winner, but it's an important conversation that I think we really have to have in this nation, and that's what I've been able to do, and I'm grateful for anyone to allow me to talk about it.
And we have to talk about news of day, of course, but I'm curious about what turned it around for you before we get into news
And what
of day.
advice do you have for those that might be hesitant to seek help?
Get help. It works. And if you're skeptical, I was too. I'm like, oh, this doesn't change. Like nothing's going to help. But it did, and it works. And I'm very grateful to have that opportunity. And I would want to have that same kind of opportunity for anyone that's suffering. But I'd also want to remind that that is a red county problem, and that's a blue county one. And it's like, and if it maybe not be you, then it's somebody that you love, somebody that you know, somebody that you work with, that they're having these kinds of issues. And we really need to have that conversation and to make that part of health overall, because that is just part of the health conversation overall.
So let's have a hard conversation about Israel and Gaza and what's going on there. Everybody agrees Israel has a right to defend itself. Hamas attacked them. Hamas has to go. It's the means and the methods that people are in agony over. They see the thousands of dead children, the thousands of dead civilians, and they wonder, is there no better way to do this, Israel? I know you support Israel's efforts. Do you see an alternative?
Yeah, no, well, it's absolutely tragic. It's heartbreaking. And, I don't assign any more value in the life of a Palestinian child than my own children. And I see that kind of a pain. And it's a war, and it's absolutely terrible. And we have to, what's going on and where Hamas now is hiding behind civilians and things, and Israel has, you said, that they have the right to defend themselves and to destroy Hamas. I think that's critical.
I think everybody wants Hamas destroyed, but I think the position Netanyahu seems to be taking, and I'm wondering how you feel about him these days, is that destroy Hamas at all costs. They say many of the victims now are women and children, clearly very, very innocent. I know what you're saying, no life is better than the other, we understand that, but at what point do you say we have to come up with another strategy that at least keeps the innocent, the women and the children, safe?
Well, it very important to minimize the kind of collateral damage and protecting civilization lives as well. And I would hope that Hamas decides to not starting to hide behind civilians and creating those circumstances that makes it even more difficult as well. But
that seems to be their strategy too, Senator, to hide behind.
Yeah, that is their strategy, and now even in hospitals or in the tunnels and everything. And we also can't forget about the hostages as well, too. They've been now in custody now since October 7th. So it's an awful situation, and you don't have to agree. You don't have to agree with every leader's views. But we have an opportunity to stand with Israel in this situation, and that's what I've decided to do.
Is
and
Netanyahu,
the other
Netanyahu the right person
Exactly.
at this particular time? There seems to be a lot of incoming for him as well.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And then, of course, the tragedy of the awful situation where the aid workers were killed.
7 aid workers, yeah. I want to shift gears to the presidential election. A recent poll from the Wall Street Journal shows that Trump leads in 6 of the 7 swing states. With that margin of error being so slim, what does Biden and the Biden administration and the campaign need to do moving forward?
Well, I'm having a real honest conversation about this, and I really do believe that Joe Biden is going to win. And I believe that because America is now have to confront this. It's a very stark choice right now. Do you want chaos, or do you want to have a decent man who has done and got us through the pandemic, addressed inflation, has waded in on this war in Gaza, and now I really believe we have a very stark choice here. And I think when America comes to the polls, they're going to decide that they don't want. I mean, were we better 4 years ago? I mean, has people forgotten a lot of bad things that have happened 4 years ago as well too?
But Senator, the people that support Donald Trump do not think he's chaotic. In fact, they think he is saving America, that he's making America a better place. Certainly when it comes to the issue of immigration, they don't think he's chaotic.
Yeah, no, what happens to be true, that there is a situation on the border, and we do have to address that. And it's incredibly disingenuous that they walked away from that border deal, that we all worked on that.
Would you call it more than a situation?
Yeah.
I would call it a crisis. Absolutely, hundreds of thousands of people are showing up, and they're desperate to come to our nation.
Is an executive action needed?
I'm not sure. What I think we need is a comprehensive solution as well. I think that's what's necessary as well, too. And I believe that I want to have that conversation, and we even perhaps make it even more stronger than what the border deal is well. And, my wife, and she's here with me today. I mean, she was a former dreamer. I am an absolute supportive of immigration. And I think two things are true at the same time, that we can be very supportive of immigration and celebrate immigration, but we also need a more secure border. And I think we need to achieve that.
Katie Britt, Republican senator from Alabama. She's fallen under a lot of criticism after her rebuttal to the State of the Union. People were making fun of her. People were saying mean things about her. You actually reached out to her when you were in Walter Reed, invited her to visit. She did visit with you.
Yes.
Why'd you want to do that? And what's the message that the two of you have about, I guess, bipartisanship and also support for people with mental health problems?
Yeah. Well, she actually did visit me at Walter Reed, and we've been a friend. And she has a beautiful family as well. And people don't realize what's behind a lot of the headlines as well. And her children were visiting D.C. with their whole class, and this was all before all that happened with the union. State speech, and their children. I saw the kind of pain that they were in when having all of this happen, and my own children were part of the headlines, the national headlines, and nothing is so heartbreaking when children are like, please don't, I don't want to go to school today because of all that. And people have to remember that there's always going to be kids in those situations that they never signed up for that kind of a situation as well. And I would never pile on, and I would just acknowledge that it was a difficult situation, and the family are actually part of all of it.
Yeah, and I'm sure she appreciated it, that's for sure. Senator Fetterman, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you.